Hello and welcome back to I Create For You. Today we're going to do a story out of the Lighthouse Ghosts and Legends book by Nina Kostopoulos. Okay. I boo-booed and I actually skipped a story, but I'll get back to that one maybe tomorrow. So this one is going to be What the Reef Takes, the Reef Gives Back. Here is a picture of Penfield Reef Light near Fairfield, Connecticut. And I will read the story and then I will illustrate the ghost after I'm done. A dory breezed through the Long Island Sound, rocking gently on the waves. The day was warm and quiet, except for the squall of the gulls gliding overhead and the soft sound of water lapping against the base of the boat. The vessel's occupants steered carefully toward the reef, cautiously maneuvering their boat around the rocks beneath the water's surface. On the right, they passed the Penfield Reef Light, one of the last offshore masonry lights built. It was erected to warn sailors away from the dangerous shoals they now crossed. Knowing the area well, the two sailors picked an opportune spot for a day of fishing and anchored their vessel near the lighthouse. The low afternoon sun cast gold-lace shadows across the water as they tossed their lines into the sea, hoping to catch cod and flounder, maybe even a few tuna for the evening supper. They cast and reeled their lines back in again all afternoon. It was a perfect day for fishing, and the young fishermen were determined to fill their buckets. As the day wore on, the two young enthusiasts lost track of time. They had caught nearly enough fish to fill the freezer, but they continued, knowing they could give the extras away to neighbors and friends. Late in the afternoon, the weather began to turn. The gentle breeze rolled and shifted. Ominous storm clouds slid across the sky, dulling the shimmering water, and the boat began to rock among the waves. The two young sailors were startled by the sudden change of weather. Without a second thought, they packed their belongings and pulled the anchor back on board. They knew what they were up against. Their fishing reef was actually a peninsula, worn down by rough and restless waters into a series of small islands. Eventually, over hundreds of years, even the islands themselves had eroded into the mile-long stretch of shoals beneath their boat, one of the most dangerous areas in the Long Island Sound. The fishermen knew if they didn't leave their reef immediately, they would never leave. As they pushed off, rain erupted out of the sky in sharp, stinging drops, and the small mast of the boat pitched wildly in the wind. A wave rose, casting its shadow over the side of the boat and drenching the hapless sailors. Water spilled across the floorboards and into their buckets of fish as the men struggled to steer their dory. In an instant, they lost control. The vessel spun recklessly into the rocks and capsized. The men came up coughing, fighting to stay above the thrashing waves. Both were strong swimmers, but no match for the tempest. They were on the verge of drowning when, out of nowhere, a man appeared on the rocks near the lighthouse. Without hesitation, he swam out to the men, whose arms and legs flailed desperately in an attempt to stay afloat. The stranger grabbed one of the men and dragged him to the rocks beneath the lighthouse. Then, with equal resolve, he swam out to get the other man. The two young fishermen lay on the rocks, weary and in shock. When they looked up to thank the man who had rescued them, he was nowhere to be seen. He had disappeared as quickly as he appeared. A number of local legends shared themes common to this story: a shipwreck, drowning fishermen, and a small vessel too close to the rocks. In the end, the savior of all on board appears and disappears, leaving no clues as to his identity. One similar tale involves two boys who were fishing just off the rocks in a small canoe. When their canoe flipped and they were thrown into the choppy waters, a man appeared and dragged them to the shore of the lighthouse. The lighthouse figures prominently in each of these tales, leading many to seek answers there. The Penfield Reef Light was built in 1874 atop a cylindrical granite pier. It was designed by renowned architect F. Hopkinson Smith, who also designed and built the lighthouse at Long Island Sound's Race Rock and laid the foundation for the Statue of Liberty. The lighthouse cost a steep sum, $55,000, and, like the Ledge Light in New London, Connecticut, it resembled a large, well-to-do home. The keeper's dwelling was attached to the 35-foot tower whose beacon flashed 51 feet above the sea. A 2-story, 4-bedroom house with an oil room, kitchen, first-floor den, and second-floor bedrooms, the dwelling was more than sufficient for a keeper and his assistant. Penfield Reef had a series of keepers over the years, including 2 female assistants, before the much-remembered Frederick A. Jordan served. On a cold December day, Jordan left the lighthouse in his small boat, bound for a Christmas holiday on the mainland. He made all the necessary arrangements for his leave, including last-minute cleaning and maintenance on the tower. With a final wave, he wished his assistant keeper, Rudolph Iden, happy holidays and pushed off. But as Jordan left the lighthouse, his small boat capsized. Iden did all he could to rescue the keeper, but in the end, his efforts were fruitless. He recorded the events of the day in the keeper's log. Keeper left station at 12:20 p.m. and went about 150 yards northwest of the light. His boat capsized, but he managed to cling to the overturned boat. He motioned me to lower the sailboat, but on account of the heavy seas running from the northeast, it was impossible to launch the boat alone. At 1 p.m., the wind died down a bit and shifted to the south. I then lowered the boat safely and started off after the keeper, who had by this time drifted about 1.5 miles to the southwest. When about 1/2 miles from the light, the wind shifted to the southwest, making a headwind and an outgoing tide, which proved too much for me to pull the heavy boat. I had to give up and return to the station with the wind now blowing a gale from west-southwest. Sent distress signals to several ships, but none answered. Lost track of the keeper at 3 p.m. He is probably lost. Indeed he was. Soon after 3 p.m., Jordan's body was found adrift in the waters near the lighthouse. He had fallen victim to the very reef over which he kept his watch. Jordan's death was the second tragedy in a month. Just weeks before his own ill-fated journey, 9 barges belonging to the New York's Blue Line had wrecked upon the reef, which is now known as Blue Line Graveyard. Since these tragedies, a tale of a mysterious lifeguard who saves drowning fishermen had become almost commonplace on the Long Island Sound. A spectral figure has been shifting about the lighthouse. Keepers have reported seeing a form dressed in white floating about the lighthouse tower at times. The form floats down the staircase and out the door, where it promptly disappears. Locals have also seen the figure in the lantern room, particularly on stormy nights, swaying in the light. On other occasions, some have caught glimpses of the shadowy spirit on the rocks at the base of the lighthouse. It is said that Iden himself, having become keeper after Jordan's death, saw the apparition slide out of an upstairs room. As he stood watching, it made its way down the stairs and vanished. When Iden reached the first floor, he found that his journal had been placed on the table and opened to the entry recorded December 22nd, 1916, the day Fred Jordan died. When asked about the ghost of Fred Jordan, Iden is said to have responded matter-of-factly. There was an old saying, "What the reef takes, the reef gives back." The Penfield Reef Light is located in Long Island Sound near Fairfield, Connecticut. The lighthouse can be seen from the shores of Fairfield and Bridgeport. For the optimal view, however, visitors should take a boat through the sound. And the rest of it just tells you how you can get information on how to visit that lighthouse. Okay, so now I'm going to try to sketch an illustration of the light keeper. All right, so we have, I'm going to try to make some rock forms here. I'll put you down. See if you can, that might help you a little bit better. It's amazing how so many, it seems, so many apparitions or ghostly figures always seem to have an agenda and unfinished business that they feel that they need to do after their passing. And it seemed that this light keeper really wanted to continue to save those that passed his lighthouse or came in contact or near it for their fishing pleasures, their destinies, their journeys, and he wanted to make sure he stood his ground, literally, and helped in their rescue. I don't know. I mean, it's so weird that sometimes some of these stories, it's just unbelievable how much these can manifest themselves in a way that to help, to be able to physically do things. Their spirit and determination is so strong. I'm going to just make this as the water in the bottom here. Don't mind my nails. I really need to get them done. I just haven't had the moment to do it. Okay, so I'm going to refer to the picture of the lighthouse a little bit here. If I can find it again. These are really some good stories in here. Okay, this is another, I'll show you the picture again. So it looks like, it sounded like a really nice house too. A really nice, I mean, most lighthouses are pretty lanky and tall, and this one seemed to have a homey feel to it, which may be a lot better for people who have to be out in an area where, you know, they don't have a lot of, the only way they can actually be in touch with anyone is if they get themselves to shore. You know what I mean? They're sort of isolated, and that, I guess, that can cause stir craziness, sort of like cabin fever, but in a lighthouse effect. So I mean, the guy who made this, he really had the best intentions when he made this lighthouse. Now I'm just gonna have it. My paper's not big enough, so I'm just gonna have it go off here. And this is like a little railing up here. And this is like half here. Yeah, it's really big and roomy inside. I can't imagine those other lighthouses which are up and about, you know, like up and upright and really tall, them having that much room because they're so slender. If you look at this one, it's not your normal lighthouse because it's just square, like a square home with a little bit of tower. So I know that the other ones that I've seen, your more typical ones, are ones that have the tall cylinder shaped, tube shaped buildings where you go up. Oh my goodness, I gotta keep referring to this, so I'm so sorry. Let me look at it a little bit here. You know what this looks like to me? But that could just be me. But doesn't these look like solar panels? To me, it looks like solar panels, but maybe I'm wrong. See that? I'm not quite sure. Or maybe that's a way to get down onto the rocks. Some kind of ladder that they made. There's one right here. Yeah, I'm not the best illustrator, am I? Yeah, boy. But I'll do my best. Okay. And there's also a railing around here. And then those two slats that came up that I'm assuming are solar panels, but I don't know. I'm just going to color them in dark. I'm not quite sure what they were. Now, I'm going to try to... they didn't have any pictures or description of what the man might look like. But if he is the lighthouse keeper, he seemed to be not a young man, but anywho, I am going to try to, I guess, you know what, he might be even better standing up on here. So I'm just not going to be in a lot of detail. I'm going to just try to remember. Now he's some sort of apparition, so he's not going to be too detailed. He's just going to be a figure. Okay, so we're going to continue to do him. The best that we can. Not quite sure, like I said, what he would have been wearing. I wonder if he was like in the same type of clothes that he was wearing when he passed. Okay, he's on the shore. Not too good of a... Yeah, I'll do this too. I usually do this around my ghost figures. So I'll do this. Alright, and down here, we'll put some people, someone in the water. Fighting to get out the water. Just somebody in here. Hey, now cut it out, little kitty cats. Alrighty, there's somebody stuck in the water there, trying to get out. And then I'll just, over here, I'll do a boat upside down. It's a boat upside down, capsized in the water. Okay, it's upside down, capsized in the water. there's the person who has fallen out of the boat, and there is our lighthouse keeper seeing and will probably attempt to rescue the victim. Well, this wasn't one of my best drawings, but best of my ability. And a kind of a theme as to what actually happens. Let me get you back. There we go. Now you can see the whole. Buildings are not my thing. Absolutely not. But there's our victim, our hero ghost figure, and capsized boat, the rocks along the lighthouse, and the lighthouse itself. And so I'm not sure how many more, but we have quite a few more of these stories, and I have to backpedal one because I kind of skipped over it accidentally, and this is the one I skipped over, so we'll be doing that one next. But see how these long cylindrical lighthouses are, and that one was so much different because it was like a home with a cool attic. So thank you so much for coming along with this story. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and comment if you'd like to. And we will be back into this book again, hopefully tomorrow. Thanks so much. See you in the next one. Bye bye for now.